Step across the threshold and into the salt circle. Traditionally, a salt circle demarcated a space of protection, a shield against the unseen. Yet here, within these sacred bounds, we claim its deeper alchemy, not only to shield, but to potentize, to harness and amplify the raw, untamed energies of your hidden and true nature. This is the crucible where we meet the totality of ourselves, to unearth and heal the inner child, to confront and shatter the echoes of inherited dark legacies. Here we forge the strength to be rooted in your most authentic, primal self, engaging in the elemental craft of alchemical self transformation. It is here we embark on the courageous journey of shadow integration, weaving darkness and light into the indivisible tapestry of your being, daring to understand yourself down to the most esoteric, ancestral, and distilled nucleus. Hi, I'm Daniela, your guide within the Salt Circle. Today, we turn our unflinching gaze towards a core shadow aspect, a sacred wound, yet also a profound source of power within our inner landscape, the wounded Fae. This is the resonance of our inner child, not as a fragile, fading echo, but as the spark within, an incarnate dance between chaos and order, deeply woven with the primal energies of cosmos and earth. This core divinity, this untamed power, persists as a potent elemental force, even when bearing the most profound alchemical imprints of trauma and abuse. Its true nature merely obscured, never extinguished, always awaiting its courageous reclamation. We approach this vital part of our primal self not to merely soothe it, but to understand its fierce wisdom and reclaim its power as a catalyst for our deepest transformation. But what does this reclamation entail? How do we move from identifying this profound concept to engaging in the practical, often challenging alchemy of healing? That is the precise map for our journey together here today in this episode. We will begin by becoming psychological cartographers, tracing how these foundational imprints of early abuse and dysfunction manifest in the tangible architecture of our adult lives, in our relationships, in our self perception, and our emotional realities. Then, equipped with this essential, often clarifying understanding, we turn from diagnosis to practice. We will explore the art of reparenting, offering a tool of gentle yet potent techniques for cultivating internal safety, for compassionate listening, and for nurturing the tender landscape within. Finally, our work will culminate in the illuminating path towards true integration, a conscious and loving guidance of this powerful inner self, not merely towards healing, but towards a state of reclaimed and authentic wholeness. This descent into the heart of the wounded Fae demands both courage and conscious care. It is your sacred duty to yourself to forge a space around you that feels both like a fortress and a consecrated temple. Gather what anchors you, be it scent of candles or incense, or maybe hot tea, the tactile comfort of a blanket or somewhere soft and comfy like your bed, or maybe in the bathtub, the silent witness of a journal, maybe even. The alchemical vessel of your body and of your spirit must be honored. Should the currents of memory or emotion surge with overwhelming intensity, know that pausing is not retreat, but a crucial act of sovereignty. Anchor, breathe, return only when the path feels calmer. Your journey, your boundaries, your command, these are absolute here. We now embark upon the foundational act of this inner work, anchoring. I invite you to consciously, powerfully connect with the potent earth of this precise moment, right here, right now. Forge a direct conduit, an unbroken line to the deep wellspring of your innate wisdom, the silent knowing that already is alive within you. Draw your awareness inward, a deliberate descent from the external world into the sovereign territory of your inner self. If you're willing, allow your gaze to soften at a point in front of you, or allow your eyes to gently close. This is a clear signal to your entire being that it is time to turn inwards. Now breathe. Not a shallow, unconscious breath, but a profound intake that plummets beyond the confines of your lungs, down, down into the very bedrock of your being. And as you exhale, don't just release air, but dismantle. Actively expel any dissonance that jars your spirit, any carefully constructed pretense, any psychic armor that has outlived its purpose and now only constricts your ascent. With each breath in and out, you arrive more fully, more authentically. Feel that anchor take hold immutably. Envision yourself as a pillar of light, as a conscious axis mundi, bridging the resonant magnetic core of the dark earth beneath you and the boundless starlit expanse of the cosmos above. This is not a passive drift into oblivion. This is active surrender, a courageous yielding, not to an aimless current, but to the undeniable gravitational pull of your own depths, the very center of your truest self. And here, in this anchored stillness, dare. Dare to allow the primordial silence within you to unfurl. Vast, luminous, like a cosmic banner in the inner void. From this profound emptiness, which is also an ultimate fullness, extend the courageous alchemical act of radical acceptance to every facet of your experience, every sensation, every memory, every shadow, every spark, anything that is dredged up from the depths. This right here is the crucible. This is the space that you have just created, cultivated, and claimed, the sacred ground of your own unmediated presence. With our sacred space established and our roots deeply anchored, we now consciously weave and seal the potent intention for this shared working. Our unified purpose, stated with clarity and resolve, to unflinchingly meet our wounded Fae, that luminous, oft-shadowed self, the paradoxal guardian of our deepest hurts and the fierce keeper of our most transformative keys. we approach this core aspect not with trepidation, but with clear-sighted compassion and unyielding curiosity, as someone who dares to gather and integrate every lost fragment of the soul. Therefore, we cast our focused circle of intent, not as a diffused hope, but as a concentrated, incentive beam of will. Its purpose, to excavate and unvarnish the truth, to illuminate the wisdom encoded within the wounded self, and to alchemize its frozen, stagnant energies into liberated, flowing power. May this shared container, this alchemical crucible, this salt circle that we now co-create, be the sacred ground where every exiled aspect of our being is not merely acknowledged, but also courageously claimed, meticulously invited to the light, reintegrated, and ultimately reforged anew in the purifying fires of acceptance, awareness, and radical self-love. This is our will. This is our work. So mote it be. Within the crucible of this hour, or hour and a half, prepare to journey deep. We will not merely observe, but excavate the often shadowy anatomy of the wounded Fae, venturing with bravery into the uncharted, sometimes maze-like territories where its shrouded genesis lies. Together we will map the profound, sometimes insidious, ways these foundational imprints have sculpted the very architecture of our present life. But let me be unequivocal. This is no sterile exercise, no mere dots on a piece of paper. We are here to be empowered and equipped. You will begin to forge and then wield an arsenal of deeply transformative practices, tools for profound self-compassion, methods for radical reparenting. This, in its essence, is primordial materials, ingredients for our self-sorcery. So, therefore, do not just expect to unearth understanding. Prepare to actively ignite and catalyze the fierce, beautiful alchemy of your own becoming. Prepare to emerge step by conscious step as the architect of your fate, of your healing, of your wholeness. So, defining the inner child from a psychological and esoteric lens. From a rigorous psychological standpoint, the inner child is not a miniaturized self encased within you. Rather, it's a powerful and dynamic metaphor representing the resonating core of your formative years, a complex tapestry woven from your childhood experiences, your most vibrant joys, your deepest sorrows, your potent memories, and the crucial emotional learnings that persist, consciously or subconsciously, into your adult life. This inner child archetype encapsulates the foundational blueprint of your beliefs about yourself, about others, about the world at large. A worldview often etched in your earliest, most impressionable years. Consider it a living echo of your younger self within your psyche, the part of your personality that still perceives and feels and reacts with the immediacy and intensity of childhood. It holds your innate capacity for wonder, your boundless creativity, your raw vulnerability. But crucially, it also carries the unmet needs, the unexpressed emotions, and the enduring imprints of past hurts. The psychic wounds that, until addressed, will continue to come about and seek healing and resolution. And of course, this isn't something that is a theory that is born of fantasy. This is a profound psychological concept uh, coined by pioneers like Carl Jung. He also illuminated things like the divine child archetype, which is seen as a symbol for future potential wholeness, we'll just say. He also goes in to discuss things like transactional analysis, which offers a practical model of what's called the child ego state, which reveals how early patterns from our childhood continue to drive interactions and reactions as we age. Now, let's bridge this understanding with an esoteric or pagan lens, which often views the child not just as a developmental stage, but as a symbol for our primordial essence, our purest, unadulterated connection to spirit, to untamed joy, and to our most authentic self before the layers of societal conditioning, expectation, or trauma begin to accrue. The term Fae, as I like to use it here, for the wounded Fae, evokes something, exquisitely precious, incredibly rare and magical, profoundly symbolic with the energies of nature and the unseen realms. This spark, this Fae spark is like the beginnings of our folklore. It's not only powerful, but also incredibly sensitive. Like, it's almost like possessing a delicate energetic structure that can be easily disrupted, ensnared, or feel catastrophically lost or fragmented through neglect, invalidation, or negative experiences. It is, in essence, the indwelling ember of divinity within us, the untamed, intuitive aspect of our soul that remembers wonder, that speaks in symbols, and that yearns for authentic connection and unfettered expression. So, why the critical distinction? Why wounded? When a child, in its open state of development and profound vulnerability, encounters trauma, be it the overt shattering of abuse, like physical, emotional, sexual, or the corrosive emptiness of neglect, or the chronic instability of being in a dysfunctional home or in an emotionally barren environment, this innocent, luminous Fae essence becomes deeply, often violently injured. And this is the genesis or the origins of the wounded Fae. Trauma, in its shittiest reality, overwhelms the child's innate capacity to cope and integrate experience. It doesn't just leave a mark, it can fracture the developing sense of self, searing lasting imprints onto the delicate architecture of the nervous system, distorting emotional development, and poisoning the wellspring of self worth. The wounded Fae is that part of us encapsulating these overwhelming experiences, holding the pain, the terror, the betrayal, often in silence, deep within the psyche. As these descriptions unfold, I invite you to take a slow, conscious breath. and perhaps another. Just allow these words to settle. When you hear the phrase inner child or the term the wounded fae, what is the very first unfiltered sensation, image, emotion, or even single word that arises for you? Don't chase it, don't dissect it, simply notice. Witness it with a gentle curiosity, as if you're observing a really rare butterfly out in the garden. Is there a particular age, a specific felt sense of you at this age or stage of life that comes forward as you hold this awareness? Just be with whomever or whatever has shown up. There's no right or wrong here, only your truth, gently invited to the light. The formative, often traumatic experiences of our wounded fae are not relics confined to the museum of childhood. They actually become deeply embedded energetic and psychological imprints, forging persistent patterns and acute sensitivities that actively and profoundly sculpt and all too often sabotage our adult lives, frequently operating from the shadows of our unconscious awareness. So, here I want to talk about common manifestations of this, or the reverberations of early wounds. So, emotional dysregulating or dysregulation is the first one. This manifests as a compromised capacity to navigate the intensity, duration, and ebb and flow of your emotional states. The inner landscape can feel chronically volatile or unnervingly numb. Imagine feeling instantaneously overwhelmed by everyday stressors. If a minor spark ignites an inferno, picture sudden disorienting mood swings or emotional reactions that feel jarringly disproportionate to the immediate situation. A surge of intense rage all over a small inconvenience, a chasm of profound sadness triggered by minor criticism. This often occurs because the wounded fae's innate emotional thermostat was either critically damaged by early chaos or never had the safe, consistent environment needed to calibrate properly. Another reverberation is the unconscious reenactment of our early relationships and bonds. So here we see the unconscious, often painful reenactment of primal attachment wounds and relational dynamics learned at the feet of our earliest caregivers, projected onto our present connections. So, some examples of this reverberation are codependency, fear of abandonment, difficulty with trust or intimacy, attraction to unavailable or harmful individuals. Codependency, this isn't about, just being nice. This is a form of self annihilation in service of others, an insatiable need to please or rescue, an almost physical inability to articulate a no or honor one's own boundaries. We definitely will have dedicated future episodes specifically to untangle the intricate knot of codependency. Fear of abandonment is a primal terror of being unkept. You're not wanted. Often manifesting as anxious clinging in relationships, intense distress when the other person seeks healthy space, has a different opinion, or, the tragic pattern of remaining in a deeply unhealthy situation simply to avoid the perceived abyss of not having that other individual in their life. Difficulty with trust or intimacy, this is the emotional fortress that was built brick by brick from past betrayals. It is a profound struggle to truly let others in, a pervasive expectation of being hurt again, or because a pattern of emotional unavailability which keeps connection at bay. And with the attraction to harmful or unavailable partners or people, it's a heartbreaking yet common manifestation where the psyche, in its hauntingly familiarity with pain and chaos, unconsciously seeks to recreate, and it hopes finally resolve this familiar though deeply damaging dynamic from childhood, adolescence. Another reverberation is the tyranny of the inner critic. So, this is a deeply etched, often core conviction of being fundamentally flawed, inherently unlovable, or perpetually inadequate, frequently accompanied by a relentless, harsh, and punitive inner voice. So, listen for incessant whispers or shouts of self-criticism. That's what it is. The relentless negative talk. The I'm worthless. This is why I have no friends. This is why, dee 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 dee. Recognize it in recognize it in the debilitating grip of, that you are clinging to these perceived imperfections. This inner critic is often the internalized, amplified echo of critical shaming or abusive caregivers. Usually, we have our inner voice is our first bully, or it mirrors our first bully. It's a hostile, occupying force within the psyche. Another reverberation is outdated survival blueprints like maladaptive coping mechanisms. These were once ingenious, vital survival strategies forged in the midst of chaos and dysfunction, of, childhood adversity. They were necessary then, but now in adulthood, these same blueprints often operate as outdated, unconscious, and profoundly self sabotaging scripts. So, some examples of that are perfectionism, had a healthy drive for excellence, but the desperate, exhausting gambit for love, acceptance, safety. Maybe it stems from a childhood belief that if I'm flawless, I can't be rejected. Another is people pleasing, the systematic forfeiture of the self, your needs, your desires, your truth, on the altar of external approval or conflict avoidance. In this, the wounded Fae learned early that, my authenticity is dangerous and my compliance is survival. Another is addictions and compulsions. This could be substances, food, relationship, and it's the relentless search for some type of phantom solace. It's a desperate attempt to numb unbearable feelings, to escape the inner void, or to feel something when faced with profound emptiness. Another is avoidance or procrastination, which is often rooted not in laziness, but in a profound, paralyzing fear of failure, of judgment, or even success, which might feel unsafe or unfamiliar to the wounded Fae. Dissociation, which is the psyche's emergency eject button. This is feeling profoundly disconnected from your body, your emotions, your memories, or even reality itself. And, once upon a time, this was a brilliant survival strategy that the wounded Fae employed to protect, you when you were a child or growing up. But it was very needed when you couldn't escape something that was overwhelming or inescapable. You just left. No one was home. And it has very little practical uses in adulthood. Another reverberation is the eclipse of joy, playfulness, and authentic expression. This is a stark severance from the wellspring of spontaneous joy, innate creativity, easeful pleasure, and the vibrant, unique resonance of your true self. Life becomes muted, dutiful, or overwhelmingly effortful. It is the pervasive sense of numbness, the feeling of going through the motions as if you're a ghost in your own life. It's finding it almost impossible to genuinely relax or really play without being careful, as if, you know, you need purpose to have childlike wonder. This happens because the wounded Fae, in its fight for survival, learned to silence its authentic expression, to dim its light, believing its true self was too much, too little, or just simply unsafe. So let's go deeper. Many of these unhealed wounds, these disowned emotions, these suppressed aspects of the wounded Fae's authentic experience do not simply vanish. They are often exiled into the psychic underworld that Carl Jung so brilliantly termed the shadow. This shadow becomes the repository for all the parts of ourselves we consciously or unconsciously deny, repress, or deem unacceptable. Healing, therefore, involves the courageous and compassionate reclamation of these exiled energies, bringing them out of the darkness and into the conscious, and to be integrated into our awareness. From an esoteric perspective, profound trauma doesn't just impact the psyche, it creates a dense energetic signature or blockages or even fractures within our luminous energetic architecture, our bodies. The wounded Fae, in essence, holds these disruptive imprints, which can significantly affect and dim our vital life force, distort our energetic flow, and obscure the clear signal from our sovereign spirit, our higher self, or our spiritual guidance. If any of what I've said or what I've described resonates, if you feel a pang of recognition deep within your being, please, I implore you, take this truth into your heart. These are not indictments of your character. These are not signs that you are broken or inherently flawed or that you are beyond or in desperate need of repair. Quite the contrary. These patterns, these reactions, these coping mechanisms are testaments to your profound sacred intelligence. They are ingenious, often desperate, survival strategies your younger self, your wounded Fae, brilliantly developed to navigate and endure overwhelming, often unbearable experiences. They worked then, they kept you alive. The sacred challenge And the profound opportunity before us now is not to condemn these strategies, but to honor their past service. And then, from a place of grounded adult wisdom, unwavering self compassion, and newfound empowerment, to consciously choose, learn, and integrate new, healthier, and more expansive ways of being that align with who you are today and who you are becoming. Having acknowledged the echoes of the past, we now turn towards the sacred, transformative work of the present, the gentle yet powerful path of reparenting and nurturing your wounded fae. This is where the true alchemy of today begins. Reparenting, in its most profound sense, is the conscious, intentional, and alchemical act of providing for yourself now the essential emotional nourishment, safety, and validation that you needed and did not consistently receive in your formative years. It is a sacred journey of becoming the wise, fiercely compassionate, and unwavering protective guardian to your own inner child, to your inner fae that you have always deserved. It is crucial to understand that this is not about casting blame upon your past caregivers, though acknowledging the reality of any harm or deficit is a vital first step toward authentic healing. Rather, reparenting is about radically claiming responsibility for your inner landscape and your emotional sovereignty now. It's about empowering yourself to break cycles and cultivate profound inner well being, irrespective of the past. These are the key principles, the actionable techniques to establish inner sanctuary, the non negotiable foundation internally and externally. The very first offering that you give to your wounded fae must be safety. This begins within by cultivating an unshakable sense of calm, security, and presence, especially when your inner child feels triggered, terrified, overwhelmed, invalidated. One technique to create an inner sanctum or establishing a safe place internally is anchoring breathing or, somatic presence. Practice grounding as a daily devotion. Engage in a simple yet profound act of breath work, a slow inhale for a count of 4, gentle hold for 4, and a complete exhale for a count of 6 or more. Feel the unwavering support of the earth beneath your feet. Push your feet down, elongate your spine, push your shoulders down, really put yourself in your body and breathe deeply, not unconsciously and shallow, but deep into the core, into your nucleus. And you also can talk to yourself too. It's not just about tactily involving yourself deliberately. It's not just for calming your nervous system, but it's to actively signal to your being in its own primal language that you are present, you are resourced, and you are fundamentally safe in this moment. Another technique is the immovable space visualization. And with that, you visualize a perfect inner sanctum that is breathtakingly beautiful, utterly peaceful, and fiercely protected. And it's somewhere that your inner child can retreat to or go to and visit as much as they want. Same for you. You can tap into that as well. And then externally, curating your energetic environment, concurrently, this demands an honest, courageous assessment of your current relationships and environments. Are these situations, dynamics, or individuals, are they constantly re-triggering, diminishing, or actively harming your inner child? Acknowledging this is a precursor to potent boundary work, a topic that is so crucial. I'm dedicating many an episode in the future to its exploration and mastery. Another thing to help with nurturing your wounded fae is sacred witnessing. There is such a healing power in listening, in validating, and deeply showing up to understand. Your wounded fae holds an unexpressed universe of stories, of emotions, and unmet needs that are crying out not for judgment, not for dismissal, not even to be fixed, but just to be witnessed. Validation is the alchemical key here. It means fiercely accepting their feelings and perceptions as absolutely real, entirely understandable, given their lived experience. Another technique for wounded fae nurturing is to engage in a written dialogue. Write down a heartfelt letter to your inner child, and then with open curiosity, allow them to write back. You can ask things tenderly, such as, "My dearest little one, how does your heart feel today? What do you need from me? What promise do I keep breaking to you?" And then in a day, in a week, whenever you're comfortable, experiment with writing as your inner child, using your non-dominant hands. This practice of using your non-dominant hand can often bypass the sophisticated defenses and intellectual filters of your adult mind, allowing a rawer, more authentic voice to emerge from those deeper unconscious depths. Another way to nurture your inner child or your wounded fae is mindful attunement. That is, or that can be, several times throughout your day. Create a micro moment of pause. Turn yourself inwards and gently, compassionately inquire, how am I feeling? How's my inner child feeling right now? Simply notice. There's no immediate imperative to fix or know or understand anything. This is an initial profound act, and its healing lies in unconditional acknowledgement. You should also, as a rule of thumb, approach your inner child with the same profound tenderness, infinite patience, and unwavering understanding that you would instinctively offer to a literal physical child in front of you who is visibly hurt or hurting or upset or afraid. Self compassion is not indulgence. It is fierce medicine against the poison of shame. Another thing to really focus on doing could be self soothing rituals. So, when distress does arise, consciously engage in actions a loving, attuned parent would offer. Place a reassuring hand on your shoulder. I give myself a hug all the time. You could feel your heart and its steady rhythm. Wrap yourself in a nice blanket. It's okay to cry. Speak to yourself with words of a gentle, encouraging, supportive parent. Tell yourself, hey, it's okay, my dear. You're not alone. I love you and I'm here with you. We will get through this together. You can talk to yourself that way. It's not cringy. Mm, Another thing to practice for healing or creating a safe space for your wounded fae to begin to heal is to restore balance or meeting unmet needs with wisdom and grace. And this involves a courageous inventory. What essential emotional nourishments were scarce or absent during your childhood? Was it consistent protection, genuine praise, spontaneous play, affection, a sense of being seen and safe? The work now is to identify these core unmet needs and discover healthy, empowering, adult resourced ways to provide these for yourself gradually and appropriately. So, like, here's some examples for reclaiming your birthright. Play and wild joy. If your childhood was starved of unstructured play, consciously schedule a time where you can be silly and not have to be careful. So you can ignite pure, unadulterated joy and lightness. Lose yourself in art and dance, in wilderness and hobbies, and dare to be silly. Your inner child thrives on play. Deep security also. Actively cultivate a home environment that feels like a true sanctuary that really speaks to your inner child. And believe it or not, to not decorate is a trauma response. Praise and self acknowledgement as well. You have to become your most ardent cheerleader. Consciously acknowledge and celebrate your small victories, your constant efforts, your acts of courage or kindness. Get yourself that slice of cake. Also, fierce protection. This is a profound act of self love, which is to learn to discern and articulate strong, clear boundaries with people, situations, or energies. And this is you in your adult power standing as a protector and as an advocate for your inner child. To branch off on that, to define your sacred space internally and externally, internal boundaries could also include dethroning that inner tyrant. Actively challenge that insidious voice in your head, that inner critic. When it unleashes its harsh bullshit, pause and ask yourself with fierce clarity, I would never speak this way to a child. Why am I doing that to myself? Confront these distortions. Reframe its critical pronouncements with statements of compassionate and objective truths. And with external boundaries, it really encapsulates the art of saying no. Practice the empowering art of saying no to requests, to demands, or situations that overextend your capacity, compromise your well being, or feel fundamentally unsafe or misaligned. This may involve lovingly but firmly limiting contact with individuals who consistently demonstrate toxic or harmful behavior. Remember, setting a boundary is an act of profound self respect. It is you defining where you end and another begins. This is the vast and vital area that we will return to in another couple of episodes. And now, to deepen this connection, I invite you to join me for a brief guided journey. This will be a sort of sacred pilgrimage inward, an opportunity to meet your wounded fae in a space of unconditional love and safety. Find a comfortable position and allow your body to settle. And if you want to or feel ready, you can soften your gaze or close your eyes. Remember your breathing, your anchored breathing, not shallow, not unconscious, but deep, deep breathing to root you into this moment. Draw in deep breaths to connect yourself with the earth around you and with your inner sanctum within. I invite you to visualize something completely your own, beautiful and deeply safe, a potent natural place, perhaps magical, perhaps sun-drenched, maybe a wildflower meadow or an ancient forest or a hidden cove by the sea. Think about the sanctuary where the Fae self would utterly feel at home. I invite you to sense, see, or simply become aware of the inner child that is appearing in this sacred space. Perhaps at a specific age that feels relevant, or merely as a felt presence, an energetic signature. I want you to observe this child with boundless compassion and open curiosity. What do you notice about them? Expression, a color? What emotions, spoken or unspoken, seem to emanate from the Fae self, from the wounded Fae, from the inner child that is meeting you in this sanctum? I encourage you to give a simple, heartfelt gesture of kindness. Maybe a little gentle smile or a soft opening of a hand to them, or maybe just offering to sit somewhere close together. I want you to radiate unconditional love and acceptance without demanding or expecting anything in return. Or maybe you can give your inner wounded Fae a symbolic gift of profound comfort and protection and joy, like a lit candle or a magical protective cloak, or maybe a flower or a playful toy. Guide them silently. Reassure them that you're here without judgment or expectation, but you are here to show your inner wounded Fae that they are deeply loved, truly seen, wholly valued, and that they, as their adult self, are now here to care for, protect, and champion them. I encourage you to spend as much time with your inner child, with your wounded Fae. I will be back in 1 second. With this quiet connection, I gently want to bring you back into your physical body, back into the room around you, into the present moment. But I want you to carry this loving connection back out with you. The ultimate aim of healing your wounded fae is not to surgically remove this part of you. It's not to fix it into some idealized oblivion or to silence its voice forever. That would be further wounding. The true path, the alchemical path, is one of sacred integration. It's about lovingly, courageously, and consciously welcoming this vital aspect back into the wholeness of your being, acknowledging its profound wisdom, honoring its legitimate pain, and celebrating its astonishing resilience. And understand this. Your wounded Fae, once met with compassion and its needs consistently tended to, also holds your most extraordinary shadow gold, the buried treasures of profound creativity, exquisite sensitivity, razor sharp intuition, unapologetic confidence in your thoughts and opinions and how to speak them, and an immense capacity for deep, authentic empathy and connection. This profound journey of healing and integration is not a sprint to the finish line. It is a gentle, often spiraling, unfolding, cyclical journey. Think of the subtle yet relentless magic of how a tiny, seemingly insignificant seed eventually cracks stone. It is the small, consistent acts of self compassion, dedicated listening, and conscious nurturing that compound exponentially over time, creating profound and lasting transformation. I invite you this week to choose just one small, tangible practice. Perhaps it's a dedicated 2-minute mindful check in with your inner child each day. Or perhaps it's placing an image that evokes comfort and safety where you will see it often. True power of these seemingly minor devotions will become evident. Before I sign off, I want to offer you these incantations for becoming. I want you to breathe them in or repeat them if you'd like. Let it resonate. These words are more than mere sentences. They are declarations of an emergent truth. I am anchored in safety, enveloped in love, and fiercely protected, now and always. My feelings, all of them, are valid signals from my soul, and I honor their wisdom. It is not only okay, but it is essential for me to have needs, and I am learning with courage and grace to meet them. I am a sacred work in progress, healing and unfurling into greater wholeness with every conscious breath. Now, as we move to leaving the salt circle for this week, I want to invite you to share your stories, your reflections, or your points of view with me. Please check out our website, and by our, I mean mine and the cat's, our website for a full list of schedules, resources, and other goodies about the Salt Circle podcast. I implore you to really focus on prioritizing yourself and hearing yourself and not judging yourself. If nothing else, Please be kind with yourself as you continue to work on your shadow work and your inner healing journey. Until next week, my name is Daniela. Thank you for joining me here at the Salt Circle.